What's up, guys? My name's Marcos Garcia. You're on Conversations with One Percenters. Today, we have a special guest, Andrew Nichols. Appreciate you and welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. No, pleasure. I'm ready to dive deep on literally everything today. We have a ritual for this podcast, and how it works is you get to ask the first question for our next guest. So, think of a question real quick and share that with us.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good. So I guess my question would be, what is the biggest lever you can pull in your life to be successful?
Biggest lever in your life you can pull to be successful. No, great question. And we have a question for you. Our last
Let's
guest.
hear it.
Our last guest is a music producer. He wants to know, if you were to die tomorrow, how would you want people to remember you?
That's a good question. I guess I would like people to remember me as someone who was hardworking and always did what was right, even if it wasn't the easiest decision.
Okay, love it. Hardworking and always did what was right. No, that what you said right there is big. Big. Sometimes doing what is right is not always the easy decision at all. For instance, let's just say someone's like, you just see someone getting robbed on the side of the road and you know it's right to help them out, but then you have like the fear, the doubt. What if I die? What if like I get stabbed or boom, boom, boom? That can keep you from making the right decision, which is to obviously intervene and help out. So no, I love that.
Yeah, no, because it's like you see it all the time. You see people like even witnessing something like that. It's like somebody robbing somebody or something like that, and then they just kind of turn their head and just walk away, right? It's like I want to be someone who is courageous and brave and be able to step in the gap when there's somebody in need, right? And that's just the kind of person I am, right? And just like everything that I'm doing is kind of geared towards having the biggest impact that I can and helping as many people as possible. And that's just like kind of how I've lived my life for a long time now.
No, I love that. So I'm ready to dive in. I'm ready to dive in, learn about more about who you are, what you do, your personal journeys. Um, take us back to, because you're in business, right? You help. To summarize for everybody who's watching right now, you're a sober coach.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, no, I help men that are struggling with alcohol get sober for long periods of time. And like, I mean, so many people have a lot of trouble actually like knowing what to do, because I even know when I was back before I got sober, like I didn't even know where to start, right? So like kind of being that resource to be able to guide people in the right direction, I think is like really needed in this world.
No, I agree. And this is one of the biggest topics this is like my favorite topic to talk about, is becoming sober and things like that. So how long have you been sober?
I've been sober over 10 years now. I got sober on November 17th, 2013. So yeah, over a decade now.
And I'm curious, what made you come to the conclusion you wanted to become sober? Because I'm not gonna lie, sometimes going out, drinking alcohol and stuff like that, it can be fun. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
not only can it be fun, everything in this world is tied to alcohol. If I want to go to the store, alcohol. If I want to go eat brunch with my friends or lunch or dinner, alcohol. If I want to go party, alcohol. If I want to celebrate, alcohol. If I want to, honestly, just like maybe even play a video game or invite some friends over, watch football, alcohol. Everything in life is shaped around alcohol. So like, what led you to the conclusion or to the thought that you want to become sober?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think like a lot of people that are like start drinking at a young age, I probably started drinking around 13, something like that, when I first got into high school. Um, I think like it was kind of like a journey from starting, because usually when you start, like, it's something new, it's like you don't even know like what's going on, and like it's so socially acceptable, right? Like every single person that I hung around with drank, and they started drinking early, and then going through high school it started transitioning to drugs and stuff like that, and like for me that was just the norm. So over that whole course of my drinking career, I kind of like in the beginning, obviously nothing's problem, and then as I get older and older and drinking more and more, different problems started coming up, right? And then so I started to get the thought in the back of my mind that, hey, maybe I do have a problem, because like even when I was younger, like people would joke like, oh, it's Andrew the alcoholic, because I would always be like buying way more booze than everyone else, always be drinking more than everyone else. Like pretty much my whole life, like even all through high school, revolved around alcohol, right? And so while I was like just living my life, it's like things kept happening. I kept pushing people away. I kept acting a fool. I kept making dumb decisions like with my money, that kind of stuff. So it was just like that development kind of led me to it eventually. And I think at the very end, me and my buddy had like an all weekend bender. We didn't even sleep. We were just drinking and doing drugs
Hey,
the whole weekend. And we ended up having like a party at one of our friends' house, and one of our buddies left his mom's vehicle there. And so what ended up happening is we hotwired it and took it for a joyride, but we were shit faced. And then not only that, but we thought it would be a good idea for target practice. We got the shotguns out and we're shooting the side of the car, right? So that was like one thing. The next day, like after I slept the whole day away and was actually like thinking about like the types of shit like that we were doing, I was like, okay, I got a problem. My nose was bleeding from doing so much cocaine. And then what happened was after that, I got a phone call from one of my best friends that I had that bender with, and he called me and he said, "Dude, like I got to change. I got to stop drinking and stuff like that." And I already been thinking about that for like quite a long period of time. So I was like, I got to do that too. So I didn't even know where to start, and that's kind of what led up to me deciding like, hey, I got to make some changes here.
interesting. So, back to like what's acceptable. Where are you from first? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, I live in British Columbia,
Oh shit. Okay, I was from
Canada.
the accent. I'm like, okay, it sounds
Yeah.
sounds a little British. I was like, okay, he can't be from America. I'm like, no. So, are you familiar with the Nelk Boys?
With who?
Nelk Boys.
No.
Nelk. So they're YouTubers. They started doing pranks and stuff like that.
Hmm.
They like they make alcohol seem so like good to drink. Let's be a full sender. Let's send it. You know what I mean? Like let's send it. Boom, boom, boom. Like
Yeah.
alcohol, alcohol,
Full send.
alcohol. So they normalize alcohol, and then now you've been through that stuff. Like you're basically saying like you've seen the negative side effects of alcohol and what it can do to like your life and how it can reshape your life, how it can make you do dumb decisions. Like you just said, you were shooting shotguns at your friend's mom's vehicle, hotwired it. Um, what can you tell an audience like that where like you have one side normalizing it, you know what I mean? You got these big YouTubers and people probably aspire to be like them. They're like, yo, I want to be like the Nelk Boys. I want to create pranks. Obviously, they're buying the merch. I'm a sender. Let's full send it. Chug, 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 drink alcohol. Like what, like, can you get more like deep into the reality and like make it like help them see the what they're getting into. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. So when I was growing up, it was a time when Jackass was really big. And so what we would do, we would get drunk and do stupid stunts and stuff. Like we jump off buildings into bushes, all that kind of stuff. And like when you're like when I was young, this was like later part of high school. You think that stuff's cool because it's popularized in like social media. You have influencers like speaking about all this stuff, about alcohol and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people, they're not able to be social, and that's like another reason why people fall back on alcohol, is to be able to go out there and have conversations with people that they don't know, right? And I know that was one of the things that I used alcohol for, in my own life too, right? But at the end of the day, you got to just think about what alcohol is, and it's a poison, right? Because once you drink it, it affects your body, and then you're not thinking the same way as you are. Your reaction time's down. You like a lot of things that you would do when you hadn't drunk. It's just not even a second thought, right? So it's like when you're young, you're gonna use this substance to kind of not be you. But I think that's what most people are running from. But it's like you kind of got to find out who you are and like develop as a person. And I know when I was younger, and I don't know why it is, like maybe it's because lack of life experience or stuff like that. But I think maybe because I'm older now, I'm about 34 now. Just like seeing how I was and seeing how I am now, it's like I could have just went down the path of like not drinking to excess and stuff like that. But I think in the moment, because I'm an alcoholic, so it affects me differently than say a normal person. Like if I was to have one drink, it wouldn't just be like, okay, I'll go out and have one drink. It's like maybe I might be able to do that in the short term. But if I had that one drink, then I'd just be thinking about it over and over again, right? So it's just like just people are scared to be themselves, right? So it's just like find out who you are and don't be scared to be yourself and try to run away from that using alcohol and stuff like that. And like, because yeah, it's crazy. It's so popularized. It's like people don't even second thought it because they see their parents doing it, people that they look up to doing it, all that kind of thing. So it's like there's no second thought of like, hey, this might be wrong, right? So I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, it kind of does. And like I said, I still work in the bar industry, so it's very normalized, especially even where I work. And I see people like you. I mean, it's just like your environment. You're there. Why not have a shot? Today was bad. Why not have a shot? Oh, I had a success today. Why not have a shot? Oh, I'm thirsty. Why not have a shot? You know what I mean? It's so normalized, like in the industry that I work in, but like also you see like I've seen just in where I work in, I've seen like people rise up just to like make it to like a higher level and then just to completely crash and destroy all the progress they work for. And even me included, I've been one of those people who just completely and what I call it is a blunder, like a chess blunder, like a chess move.
Yep.
I just completely like blundered and threw my queen out there and just like made a very, very, very bad move. So I'm curious what belief you have now. Since you were drinking before, you must have had a belief that alcohol must have been good, like it's not a bad thing, like maybe I can use it for socializing. What belief do you have now with drinking alcohol?
So I think that like there's some people out there that can like go out and have drinks and make it work in their life. But I also believe that there's a lot more people than kind of I think anyone realizes that have an actual problem where if they have one drink, it leads to other things. Because I know towards the um, back end of my drinking career, it wasn't just the drinking, right? It was like, okay, so I'll go out, have a couple of beers, maybe a couple of drinks, whatever. And then it wouldn't just stop at the booze, right? Then I'd go and get drugs as well, right? And I seen that play out with so many different people that were in my life. It was the same thing. It was like they go out, have some drinks. Oh, let's just do some cocaine so we can level out and then go and drink some more, right? And then like all of our lives were like it was just drinking, right? Like that's all I did. I didn't have any hobbies. I didn't have anything that I was kind of like any goals, anything like that. So I think that what I believe about alcohol now is like it's a poison, but you just got to be careful with it. Like if you can go out and have one drink and then not think about it again, then you might be okay, right? But if you think even for a second that you might have a problem, then you're going to need to reach out for people that might be able to help you, even if it's just looking up an AA group and going for a meeting. Like they're super welcoming, just like even at a place to start. Because like I said, I think there's so many people out there with a problem that don't even know that they have a problem, because that's the way I was. And like I said in the beginning, I had that thought in my mind long before I actually took the steps to actually get sober.
And I think I asked you this question earlier: is when was like the moment of change, like the moment of change where you're like, I need to stop this? Was it?
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So, like I said, I was thinking about getting sober for a long period of time. One of the first times I actually like tried to get sober, but it didn't work. And that's another thing. Like a lot of people think like, oh, if I try one time, then it doesn't work. It just all fails. But the thing is, most people who go to try to get sober, they don't get sober on their first time. So I wasn't any different. And the first time I went to go get sober, I ended up doing the Tough Mudder. I'm not sure if you know what that is, but I started doing so much training. Like all I was doing was training at that time, and so I was like, "Hey, maybe I'll stop drinking for a bit to like enhance my training for this." And so I ended up like doing that, and then one of the things that kind of kept me into it was the people that I surrounded myself with. Right, they kind of ended up pulling me back down, getting back into drinking and
Mm,
stuff like that. So it's just like all these things start to build up towards the end, and that story that I told you before of the bender and shooting of the car was kind of like that the thing that like I was like, okay, and I had those moments before, right? All these things that lead up and like build the problem to want me to take action. But there was a couple things that held me back. Like I said, is I stayed around the same exact people expecting a different result. And if you know the definition of insanity, that's what it is. And that's a lot of what we talk about in sobriety is the word insanity. Because like you know what to do, you know the things that are wrong and keeping you where you don't want to be anymore, but you still make the same exact decisions over and over and over again, right? So I guess it was
yep.
all these things that built up to the point where it was just like, I've had enough. This absolutely needs to change. And that's just part of the journey, right?
Mm. The Tough Mudder. You mentioned that. You said you were sober for you built you stopped drinking and stuff for this Tough Mudder. What did you see in yourself during this time? Because you had to have seen something like greater in yourself to be like you might have, you like because I've been there and you must have had like a thought like you did this and then now you went back. So what'd you see in yourself during that time that like really opened your eyes to when you started drinking again, you were like, no, this is not what I want to be.
Yeah. So for the Tough Mudder, I was working with a personal trainer, and he kind of suggested like, "Hey, you're going to see more results if you stop drinking," because he knew that I was drinking quite a bit around that time. So I was like, "Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna put everything into this," because I was like super into fitness, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, "Yeah, I want to do really well on this Tough Mudder." So I ended up stopping drinking, and I probably stopped drinking for about 4 months, something like that. And at that point, that was the longest time I've ever quit drinking since I was 13 when I started. So 4 months was a lot of time for me. And during that time of sobriety, like I noticed that I was able to excel a lot more in my training. Like I was getting faster. I could actually think clearly. I actually had money in the bank opposed to like getting loans and stuff just to support my drinking habit and all that kind of stuff lined up for me. Right. And I think one of the things again is the insanity of it because it ended up coming up to my birthday and that's how I got back out drinking. And my friends were like, "Oh, I'll pay for it. Oh, we'll
Mm.
just go out for a couple drinks." And then we go downtown to the city of Vancouver and we ended up drinking all night, doing drugs all the next day. And it was just another bender. And then I ended up getting back into the groove of drinking. Right. And the insanity of it
Yeah.
is yeah, go ahead.
Before you move on, how did you? I'm curious because I want to know how you felt that next day after you went 4 months sober and then you drank the next day. What was going through your mind?
The
Like the
very
next
next
day, not
day, the
not during the
first,
time.
yeah, the very
Yeah,
next
yeah.
day when I woke up after the bender, the first thing I thought was, I need a beer to get rid of this hangover. Hair of the dog. That's the first thing I thought, right? And that's the
Dang.
insanity of it.
Did you have any moment during that time you're like, man, like I just completely like messed up. Like I was sober and now I'm drinking again. Did you have any like negative self talk in that during those times?
Yeah, I had some negative self talk for sure. Because then, like, I think one of the things because I told my trainer that I wasn't going to drink, um, and I ended up drinking, and this was just before the Tough Mudder, right? And I ended up stopping for another week before the Tough Mudder, but then I started drinking again. So I was like, oh, I let him down. I told him that I wouldn't, but I did. And so that's another thing that I noticed with like people that are struggling with alcoholism and stuff like that is you don't have integrity. You don't do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. Right. And that was
Mm.
another thing that like was part of the buildup is like I was losing confidence and stuff because I would make promises to myself that I wouldn't keep.
Dang, no, I feel you. I've been there. No, I'm curious because even whenever I started drinking again, I was like, what I tell myself, because I did like the 75 hard. You heard of 75 hard by Andy
Oh,
Frisella?
absolutely. I've done that a couple times. Yeah.
Completed it. I was like, this is my key method. This is how I'm gonna quit alcohol. I'm gonna do the 75 hard challenge. I didn't actually complete the challenge, but I did 75 days no alcohol. Like I think I failed on like the reading or something.
Yep.
And so I did this, and I went 75 days no drinking, which is like 2.5 months. And then Halloween came up, and so I'm working at a bar. All my coworkers are gonna go out for Halloween, and they're like inviting me, and I'm like, okay, let's do this. I'm gonna go out, and I was like, I earned this celebration. Like I earned the celebration. I can go out, and I'm gonna have like this night to drink because I earned it. That was always my thing. Whenever I was going to drink,
I
I was
earned
like,
it. Yep.
I earned it. Like this is a celebration for me. Like I can reward myself with this because it was the norm. It's the norm, especially growing up. Like no one makes this into like a bad thing. Um, so I went out, drank, and next thing you know, it spiraled into like another 4 months of just me drinking. Like
Mm-hmm.
that one night, just and then I was like, I can't believe like I did like my thoughts in my head were like, one, I was like mad at myself because I felt like during this time I made all this progress. I was fit, very, very fit. I was sober. I was reading. I was doing all these positive things. And next thing you know, I started drinking and I was sleeping in. I was tired, throwing up, making a fool of myself, making bad decisions and things like that. So it's like curious to know like how like alcohol has been for you. Like
Yeah.
which is
And you
which
know
is
a
what we've
funny
been talking
thing
about.
and what
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? A funny thing that I've kind of noticed is, and it's something Andy Frisella talks about with people that do the 75 hard. It's like you go through the 75 hard, it's like an accomplishment because you did all these things for that long without any excuses or anything like that. But then you reward yourself with the thing that you're stopping, right? So whether it's the
Mm.
shitty food or the alcohol or the lack of exercise or whatever it is, it's like, okay, I'm going to reward myself with the shit that I was trying to get rid of because the whole point of it is to build those habits, right?
Dang, I never heard that part of his talk, but no, that sounds about right because that's honestly
Mm-hmm.
what I would do. Reward myself with like the things that you are wanting to stop in the first place. So, um, when you quit, so when I quit, I like I said, I still work at the bar, and I quit during the time that I'm working at the bar. It was literally the hardest thing to do, and I had no support network. And I think if I had the support network, I would have been a lot easier, way easier. Because during this time, I have people telling me like, "Yo, like, why are you hanging out with us if you're not drinking?" So it's like, what was your like? What'd you have to do to your environment? Like, how'd you have to reshape that?
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest things, and that's a pattern that I saw with the other times that I tried to get sober in the past. Was I kept hanging around the same people, and then even when I got sober in the beginning, I kind of got rid of my environment like subconsciously in the beginning, but looking back, like it makes total sense because I've tried to help people get sober without like I didn't have any sort of program or any structure or anything. Just I saw they had a problem. They were friends of mine, so I wanted to help. And some of the things that I saw them doing were their life got back on track. They were getting out of debt. They had a job. They were getting more healthy, all that kind of stuff. But then they went and hung around with the same people that they were doing drugs with or drinking alcohol, and it just pulled them back down. And they started doing the same things that they were always doing. Again, that insanity, right? So what I ended up doing is I understood that like if I stuck around in my small hometown, that it was going to be an issue because I did see that pattern and I subconsciously knew I needed to get out of there. So an opportunity came up to get on a commercial crab fishing boat
Mm.
with one of my friends that I got sober with. And it was crazy because it was like all the stars were aligning to do that. And I didn't want to go crab fishing. Like I knew the guys on this specific boat and they were telling me stories of how they're working 40 hours without sleeping. They're barely eating, this and that. And I was just like, no, I'm not going to, I don't want to do that. Right. But then when it happened, it literally just felt like I was being pulled to go and do this. Right. So that's why it was so powerful. But when I went on the boat, the captain, he had 25 years sober when I got in the boat. His son, who was the deck boss, he had 3 years sober at the time. And then the other guy on the boat was one of my best friends, who I got sober with. Right. So I was just like, okay, I can't say no, because there was another guy that was going to go, but something came up, like something crazy. I can't even remember what it is now, where he couldn't go. And so a spot opened up. So like everything aligned for me. And then so being able to get on this fishing boat got me out of my small hometown around all the same people that I was hanging around with on a
Yep.
completely sober boat way out in the middle of the fucking ocean. So I couldn't even drink if I even wanted to. Right. So I think that's probably the most powerful thing you can do if you're trying to get away from addiction and that kind of stuff.
So not everyone can get on a fishing boat. So what do
No.
you yeah, so like the reality is some of these people are going to have to cut these people off. Some of these
And
people are going, yeah, go ahead.
that's a tough choice, right? And like you might not be able to get on a commercial crab fishing boat, but what is your commercial crab fishing boat? Is there a job opportunity that's come up that has you taking action to move away from your surroundings? Like, did you see an apartment you always wanted to get, or a house, or something like that? Or did a buddy say, hey, move in with me and he's sober too, or something? Or like, just like, what is that for you? And then you have to kind of ask yourself that, because if you ask yourself questions like that, like, what can I do different? Then different things are start going to show up in your environment, because then you'll be opening up your RAS to be able to see those things that you never saw before, right? So I think the most important thing is knowing that you have something you want to change, and then asking those questions is like, okay, how can I change this?
So you're a sober coach and you obviously help people become sober. What can they find? Is it like a school group? Can you hear me?
No, but I was thinking
Okay.
of starting a school group
Okay.
down the line. But right now, what I'm doing is I just started a Facebook group for it, like not even that long ago. But I have like a system that I'm putting together that's going to walk people through some of the most valuable things that I've learned over my 10 years sober. Stuff that I didn't know in the beginning that if I would have had, it would have made things a lot easier. Like reducing the friction in your life, because like if you feel like shit, it's going to be easy to just fall back on your old habits. And that's the main thing too, is building these new habits. And if you know anything about habit formation, it's if you know the cue, the routine, and then the reward at the end, then you can pretty much swap out any old bad habit for a new good one. So say for example, you had a hard day at work and you're stressed, right? That's the cue. Then you go home and you pour yourself a drink. That's the routine. And then the reward is, okay, now I feel relaxed, right? But if you go and you keep the same cue, the stress day at work, and instead of pouring that drink, your routine, you change that routine that gives you the same reward. So whatever is going to relax you after a hard day at work. So whether it's you go for a run, you do some meditation, you talk to a group of friends, you have an AA meeting, whatever the case may be, if you switch that out and you keep doing that routine instead, then that's going to be your new normal, and that's going to be the new routine that you can fall back on.
Okay, I love that. Yeah, routine. I think routine is going to be big. You definitely got to switch up your routine and your habits. So, I want to really dive into what people, without like giving everything away, is like what can people really like benefit from being in your community, in your program.
I think the biggest thing is I think it's kind of like the trend here is um, people typically don't know where to even start and like what to do when you're sober. So I think what I offer people, or what I can offer people, if you're not too sure what to even do, I can lay out a framework and be able to hold you accountable and walk you through exactly what needs to happen to be able to one day wake up and be like, okay, I got 10 years sober, right? And it's not going to be easy. Like it's simple. It's super simple, but just because something's simple doesn't make it easy, right? So it's you're gonna have struggle. You're gonna have stuff that you don't want to do. But at the end of the day, the bigger the struggle you have, the stronger you become as a person, right? So it's like you don't want to run away from that struggle, and that's kind of what people use alcohol for too, is to like run away from the problems, right? But you want to face them head on and be able to figure out a solution to be able to have lasting change.
No, I feel that, and I think I'm not sure what I was doing when I was drinking alcohol. I don't know if I was running away or what I was doing, but I know before my biggest problem was to quit alcohol, and then once I quit alcohol, I also had more problems. So like the problems are never going to stop. Like you're always
No,
going to have problems
that's
at every
life.
level, especially if you're trying to level up. But if I could give any advice, the least of the problems you want to have is to want to have to quit alcohol. I feel like that was one of the biggest problems because it was like all you like it wasn't something you like when you're faced with a problem you can just like kind of overcome it. You know what I mean? There's got to be some solution. But with alcohol, it's like you know what to do, you're just not doing it. Just quit. You know what I mean? Just like substitute it with water or something like that. It sounds easy. Like how do I quit alcohol? Let me just substitute it with water or coffee or caffeine. But like it's not that easy, and it's more of like a mental mindset game.
Hmm. And that's another problem that I see a lot of people make too, is they go to get sober and they think that all it is just simply stopping drinking. But you can stop drinking, and what they call in Alcoholics Anonymous is a dry drunk. So you still continued being the asshole you were when you were drinking, or you trade in the addiction of alcohol, for example, for another addiction. So whether it's you're eating all this kind of junk, you get into gambling, you get into sex, you get into all these other things, right? And you just swap one bad habit for another. So that's why you got to pay real close attention to the new habits that you're putting in. You want to make sure that they're going to serve you instead of disserve you.
So I've never asked this question before, but it just literally popped into my mind. Cocaine, illegal. Methamphetamine, illegal. Weed, illegal in some states if you're in America. Um, why are all these drugs illegal, but alcohol is legal when it's considered a drug?
I think because it's so normalized. So they can, like, when I say they, the government can get away with being able to keep it legal, but then taxing the heck out of it and making money off it, right? Because if you look at the stats and stuff like that, the deaths, whether it's caused from like drinking itself and you just dying from drinking, or drinking and doing something stupid like getting in a fight and then dying, or like driving a vehicle and dying, stuff like that, the numbers are pretty high. So it's like, it doesn't make sense to me at all. So the only thing that I could personally think of is just like it's just a money machine for the government,
Hmm.
to be able to push literal poison on people that the numbers aren't lying, and it's showing that it's bad for society as a whole.
But I think even if the government didn't, even if it wasn't legal, people would still try to get it.
Oh,
So they just
100%.
yeah,
100%.
they probably just found they're probably saying like people are going to get this anyway, so let's just make money off of it.
It could be that too, but it's like, if, say, for example, they were like, okay, well, it's the same thing with cocaine, let's just make it legal. Because then one of the things that I could see happening is like people doing the drug that wouldn't have normally done it because it's now legal. And when something's legal, subconsciously we're going to say, okay, that makes it okay, right? I can still do it. And that's probably part of why, with the alcohol too, why it's so socially acceptable, because it's legal. So therefore people think that it's okay.
Hmm. No, I agree. What you said you had your first beer at 13, right? You said you had your
I had
first
my
sip of
first beer before that, but I think I got my
okay.
first drunk when I was 13.
Okay, you had it before 13, but you were 13. Like I'm trying to remember when I had my first beer. Like my first beer, I think it was like it was pretty young, but honestly, I hated beer for the passion.
So did I.
Like
Yeah.
you did? Oh yeah, like I sipped it and I was like, "Oof."
I like getting drunk though. That was
Yeah.
my
So I
problem.
didn't really. Yeah, yeah. What were people telling you? Like, why did you have your first beer at 13? Like, what was your environment like?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when you're in high school, basically you want to fit in with the crowd. You don't want to be the black sheep and be cast from the crew, right? So when I got into high school, I had a group of friends, and one of my friends was like, "Hey, like we have so and so's older brother. He can buy us some booze. Let's get some booze and get drunk, right?" And like I knew what getting drunk was. Obviously, I knew booze. I've like I said, I had a beer probably when I was like 6, but I had a sip and I didn't like it, so I just didn't drink it. But he brought that forth, and everyone else is like, yeah, let's do it, right? And because like I think when you're, especially when you're a teenager, a teenage boy, you kind of want to rebel, and it's like, okay, getting drunk is not something we're allowed to do, so let's go do it anyways and kind of rebel. And then not only that, but it's like, I don't want to not do it because now I want to fit in with the group. And at that time, like, obviously you don't know what you don't know, right? So it's just
Yep.
something new, so you just go and do it, and then you start building those habits to be able to rely on it, and then it starts spinning out of control later down the line.
And for those who are, let's say, 13, 18, maybe even 20, how did that shape your life? Like, how did that one decision right there at 13, or even before then, or when you finally first decided to start drinking, fitting in with the crowd, like, how did that one decision and like partially your environment shape your whole life?
Yeah, so and it's hard to say, right? Like, what would have happened if I didn't go out and drink? Like, because the way I'm thinking about it now, if I'm thinking about it in real time, it's like, okay, I could have said, oh, I'm not going to go drink, and then there'd be no point in me being out hanging out with those friends because they're all getting drunk. Or maybe I went out and was with them, but I was the only sober person, right? It's like the saying, you are the average of the 5 people you hang around with most, right? So it's just like, unless I was with a different group of friends who didn't want to do stuff like that, I don't think it's possible, right? Because you are the 5 people, the average of the 5 people you hang around with. And I see that more and more and more as I get older, and I see different patterns with other people. It's like you look at a group of friends of and the kinds of shit that they're doing, and if they're all not drinking, then you're not going to have just one random fucking drunk guy there, right? And vice versa. If you're in a group of people that are all drinking, well, typically you're not going to be out sober with them. Because when I first got sober, I did go to bars and stuff like that because I wanted to fit in with the crowd, but it was annoying. It's like, because now you notice all the shit that you do when you're drunk, like people close talking you, or like when they get super drunk, they start repeating themselves over and over again, or they're spitting in your face, stuff that you don't notice when you're drunk because you don't have all your awareness, right? So it's like, so I slowly started calling the nights earlier and earlier, and then eventually I'd stop hanging out there, and then that's kind of when I got the realization, shit, something needs to change, and then I got that job opportunity.
The job opportunity, and that changed your environment.
one Hundred
The
percent.
job, yeah, helped change your environment. So, do you have any kids? Question.
I don't have kids. No.
When you do have kids, or if you want kids, how you said you're the average of the 5 people you hang around with. Knowing that now, and knowing what you had, knowing your past and how your friends and the people you're around shaped, like kind of like your destiny and who you are now. What? Because my mom even told me, is that I think she mentioned it, and people do this, like the older people, they're like, oh, you're the average of the 5 people you hang around with, or oh, you if you drink caffeine or smoke cigarettes, like bad stuff's gonna happen. But then you see them like smoking cigarettes, so they're not really
Yeah.
the best examples like for you. So what would you like tell your, like, what's one thing that you would try to embed or ingrain into your son or daughter that can help them have like not fall into the same traps?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And so the first thing here is, and I saw this when I was young too, because there'd be adults trying to tell me to do shit that they weren't doing themselves. So I think the most important thing, first of all, is being able to set that example and
Mm.
have integrity to be able to do what you say you're going to do, right? And so that means, like, if say for example I'm telling my future kids that, hey, drinking isn't the best thing you should be doing, if I'm out there going to get drunk, then you think they're going to trust me or even listen to a word I have to say? No. But then another thing that I really want to push for when I have children is getting them in the mindset that they can think for themselves, right? So I don't want to give them all the information. I want to tell them what I think and kind of explain how I'm living my life and the reason why I'm doing that. But at the end of the day, they're going to need to make their own mistakes and stuff like that. And I think, like, if somebody tried to force me to do something, whether they were the example or not, when I was that young, I think I would just go and just do my own thing anyways, because when you're young, something that I've kind of realized is you think you know it all because you don't know much, right? But then the more you learn, the more you realize how little you actually know, right? Because I remember when I was like in my early 20s, I was fucking invincible. Nothing could stop me. Nothing could, I was always right every single time, right? Like these old guys like telling me just shit like, oh, it's like you'll have a sore back one day. I didn't even know what a fucking sore back was, right? So I didn't believe them. I was like, I'll always be able to do this hard physical labor. I don't know what you're talking about, old man. But then it's like, now I'm older and it's like, okay, well, I've done physical work my whole life and now I've got a sore back, right? So
Yep.
it's like all this stuff is like lining up. It's like, because when you listen to your parents, it's like they were your age at one point and they lived their lives already through that stage of life. So maybe they have something to say that you might want to listen to, right? So you can't like force anything onto anyone, but just all you can do is just be that example. And then when they mess up, be that resource that they can go and open up and talk to about what they've done and like maybe what they can do moving forward, right?
No, I love that. No, you actually made a very like several good solid points there. And like I said, they do have good like the older people out there who do tell you like stuff probably know what they should like they're telling you this because I feel like they know they shouldn't be doing it, but they're doing it. They've already fallen into the trap and they don't know how to escape it. So it's like a slight warning. But sometimes that doesn't help whenever they're not leading by example. And so they're like, oh well this my mom does it or my dad does it or you're doing it, so why can't I do it? It's like must not be that bad.
Yeah,
But
and I think that's the most important thing is being able to be that example, because if you're just like talking shit and you're not doing it yourself, it's like I don't trust people like that, right? So if someone's trying to tell me something, like say for example, and this is one that I've heard people use all the time, is like you wouldn't go to a personal trainer who's overweight and just a fucking slob, right? You want to go someone who's fit because that shows that they're doing what they're telling you to do as well.
yep. So the people out there, and I do want to mention this in the podcast just to cover both of us, is we're not medical, we're not giving any medical advice, so we're not no licensed physicians, therapists. Like if you need like medical attention, go to actual doctor. But for the people out there who are probably searching on YouTube, they're like, I want to quit alcohol. What's my steps to quitting alcohol? Because I was this person at one time. 75 hard, or like, where can I stop drinking alcohol? What advice can you give someone who is trying to quit? Like they're trying to quit, they're trying to quit, they're trying to quit. And also not even advice, they can also join your program is one of the things, but like what practical step could you get, like one step, just if you had to give one step for someone to make a positive change to becoming sober?
I'd say for somebody who doesn't really know where to start, but they're kind of like in that stage, like where they're thinking like, okay, I might have a problem. I think the first step for those people, and like to touch on the medical part that you were saying, is like I wouldn't just tell somebody to go and quit cold turkey. Like I ended up doing that personally, but knowing what I know about alcohol, and if you're dependent on it, you can end up dying
Mm,
if you just quit cold turkey. So I would say first and foremost is to reach out to a medical professional just to see if like you need to wean off the alcohol. So that's first and foremost. Like for me, I was able to just quit cold turkey like that, and I was fine. But what I would say first is like, and I had some thoughts at the beginning about Alcoholics Anonymous too. Like I kind of thought it was a cult and shit like that. But I think just looking back at like everything that I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous and all the patterns that I've seen through the stories of people that were suffering from alcoholism, I think that's the absolute best place to start, because once you get in there, it's like everyone's welcoming, everyone's like open to have you come in and like talk about the shit that you're going through. And it's crazy because like no matter how bad you have it, you're going to come across people in there that have it 10 times worse.
dang.
And then you'll be grateful that you're able to get into rooms like that and start your journey before it got that low, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all going to have a rock bottom that's different. Because I have friends that their rock bottom, like I would not ever even fathom getting that low, right? But then my rock bottom, for me, that was enough to make, like, I felt enough pain from that to be able to take action and move forward. Because if you don't feel the pain, like, it's the chances of you actually like taking action and staying sober are a lot lower. So that's why they say, like, you have to let them hit the rock bottom. Because I know for a lot of the people that I've tried to help, it's like you can't help someone who doesn't really want it. And a lot of alcoholics and like drug addicts and stuff will kind of use people um, who are trying to help them so they can stay at a level where they're just able to keep using, and you're like enabling them, right? So you got to kind of watch out for that as well.
Is it because like they're so like I've never understood this. So for me personally, when I was drinking, I didn't see it as a problem for a while, but then
Mhm.
I did see it as a problem. So I never, thank God, thank God that I never had to like actually go through like an addiction where I was like super addicted. But that's the only thing that I've ever thought about. But I'm not sure if you know it, like what your like background is on addiction, but like why are some people able to stop and some aren't able to stop?
Yeah, and I think for that question, it's going to be different for everyone. Because like my belief just in like health in general, it's like nothing's a one size fits all. Because like, and I'll just use health as an example. But like you can see people thriving over here on a vegan diet, and then you can see people thriving over here on a carnivore diet, right? So basically, it's going to be a different journey for different people. Because I know a lot of people who went to AA and that didn't work for them, right? They had to
Mm.
go and find different avenues to be able to stay sober. And so, just like with health, with your diet, anything like that, I think it's just a matter of experimenting with different things that might work for you. So, say for example, you come across my page and you see the shit that I'm talking about. Maybe you can take that free content and be able to implement it and get sober from that. Some other people might need a little more help, so they might need to work with someone like me or be in an AA group and need to go to meetings every single day for years. And I met people like that. So there's people that went to a meeting and didn't miss for 20 years, right? For me, I never needed to do that. I haven't been to a meeting in probably 6 years myself, but I used it in the beginning to build myself a foundation to be able to reach lasting sobriety. And then I found different habits and different things that I could use to be able to keep my sobriety at the forefront, right? Like even now for me, like it's a lot less like pressing, like my sobriety, but I still get shit that happens. Like when something bad happens in your life, you're going to want to, because the habit's so ingrained, right? You're going to think in the back of your mind. And I kind of, the way I like to explain it is like the devil on your shoulder that's always going to be whispering in your ear whenever the shit hits the fan in your life. So for me personally, my wife ended up leaving me probably 2, maybe 3 months ago. And my instant thought in my mind was, okay, I want to drink this pain away. But it's like, well, what's that going to do? Right. So, what I ended up doing, because I know a thing or two about how to manage depression and shit like that, for me, and then again, this is just something you're going to have to kind of experiment with. But I know for me, if I'm just sitting idle in my own head, that's going to be very bad for me. And that little devil on my shoulder is going to be yapping in my ear, and I'm going to more easily give in to my temptation than if I kept myself busy. So, like in the beginning, keeping myself busy, what that was for me and what I've used previously was physical fitness. So I would go out for a
Mm.
4 hour mountain run, or I would work out 4 times a day whenever it was getting hard, to be able to keep my composure and not want to continue moving on or like fall back on the drink. I would just go and get a workout at my gym or something like that, right? But then, and again, it's not a
So
one
physical
size
fitness.
fits all. So maybe, yeah.
Oh no, no, I'm listening. Yeah, yeah.
And
It's physical
yeah,
fitness
I
was
was just gonna
something that kind of helped you.
yeah,
I think we
physical
have a
fitness
delay.
was what helped me, but it's not a one size fits all thing. So maybe what you use as a tool to be able to get through the hard shit in your life might be different. Because I do a lot of things like journaling and stuff like that too that I find helps as well.
No, I love that. During your time when you were drinking, like from 13 to all the way to you
23.
stopped at 23,
Yes, sir.
33, 23. So during that
Yeah.
time from like 13 to 23, did you have a vision of your life? And after you stopped drinking, did you have a vision for your life?
That's funny because thinking back, I didn't have any vision. I didn't really have goals, anything like that. Like I always thought that the way my life was then was the way that my life was going to be for all time, right? Because like at that moment in my life, I didn't know anything about a fixed mindset or a growth mindset, but very much I was in the fixed mindset thing. So it was like I can only be good at the things that I'm instantly good at, and like if things are the way that they are, they're always going to be that way, right? And so after I got sober, when I got the clear of mind, because I was super foggy drinking all the time, and then I got that clarity when I was further along in my journey of sobriety, I was able to then kind of create a vision for my life and like set goals and all that kind of stuff, because I started to like, because basically what sobriety is, and I don't know if you would agree with this or not, but it's basically just a whole journey of self-development and learning how you can cope with different things that happen in your life is basically what I think sobriety pretty much boils down to.
I think, yeah, no, I agree with you. I think sobriety, to me, like the definition of sobriety would be like to constantly face problems and actually have to face them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you would, like, for me, whenever I was drinking, I would have a problem, but like when I drank, I never even thought about the problems I had anymore. Like sometimes they were
Nope.
completely gone. And then as soon as I would sober up the next day, like all the problems would arise. Like it would all rise back up. And next thing you know, it would probably be more because I spent money. So I was mad that I spent as much money as I did. Then I probably did something else stupid and then more stupid. So I was actually, not only was I not solving the problems that I needed to solve in the first place, I was creating more problems that I needed to solve. And now they were just stacking on top of each other.
Yeah, the compounding effect is real, and it can have a negative effect as well as a positive. So if you're always continuing to do negative stuff, that shit compounds, and so does all the positive stuff you do as well.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know, I don't know if you're facing this too, but I'm kind of curious. So, like for me, like honestly, even till today, like I'm still dealing with some of the negative side effects of the actions that I took when I was drinking, like years ago. Do you find that like true to yourself today?
Yeah, you know what? I think just like being a human, because we have a negativity bias. So like we're gonna pay more attention to the negative shit because that's the stuff that will kill us, right? So I think we're more inclined to be able to like fall back to the negative because like all the time, like I think about just different negative shit and stuff like that. But the only thing that I do now differently than I did when I was drinking is I do that pattern interrupt. So when I get a thought in my mind that's telling me something negative, you're not good enough, you can't do this, stuff like that, I catch it right away. And then I'm able to flip it on its head and then change that into a positive thing. Because, like I was talking about the RAS, the reticular activation system, if you start catching that stuff and flipping it over, the more positive stuff, and you focus on the positive stuff, more positive things you'll see in your environment. It's just like if you buy a new vehicle, right? And then you're driving around and then you'll see
Yeah.
those vehicles wherever you go, right? But they were always there before. It's just your mind, your reticular activation system is filtering everything out because you're not going to be able to handle all the stimulus coming into your mind, right? So,
Yeah, I think there might have been a delay, but what I was trying to say is the things that you like, for instance, for me, let's just say like what I was trying to say is, do you see like actions that you took while you were drinking still negatively affect you today in your life? Or like how long did they affect you? You've been sober for 10 years. How long
yeah,
did the things that you did while you were drinking and while you were doing drugs and stuff like that, how long did they affect you afterwards? Because a lot of people want immediate results. They stop
yeah,
drinking for a month or two and they're like, man, why am I still having these same problems when I was drinking? So like, how long did
Okay, no,
things?
I get the question. So yeah, no, that's so like I think you mentioned earlier, like getting sober isn't the cure all. You're always going to run up into problems. And so when I first got sober, I got myself into a crazy amount of debt, all that kind of stuff. I damaged relationships, all that kind of shit. So when I first got sober, I had to go out and like fix those damaged relationships, and I had to get out of debt and stuff. So probably in the beginning, all the shit that I accumulated through my drinking career, it probably stuck with me for at least 3 or 4 years after the fact,
Damn.
right? So it's some time, but and again, it's just like shit you have to work on and you have to work through
Yep.
to be able to stay sober in the first place. Because if you don't work through all those problems that you caused from drinking, then you're not going to really get anywhere.
No, very true. It's like the compounding effect. Like it's like the stock market. You start compounding stuff, and eventually, like you're not going to see any of the results that you're compounding, like your negative drinking and your negative actions and all that stuff. You won't probably see it in the day or the week or the month, but like over the course of like the year, the 2 years, the 3 years, all that stuff's going to start compounding, and then boom, it's just going to hit you. Like it's going to
100%.
hit you out of nowhere. But people don't
It's like a
realize, like,
hockey stick.
yeah, people don't realize like the stuff that they did, like it doesn't just go away when you stop drinking. Like that stuff is not
No.
just like automatically gone. You're a changed person. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you like ruined a relationship and stuff like that, like all those things are still gonna be the same, and you are gonna have to work like fucking hell to to clear all that stuff up. Like you said, you're in debt, so you're probably accumulated quite a bit of debt that it took you probably a couple of years to get rid of, and it wasn't easy to like want to give your hard-earned money to pay that debt up.
No, it was a tough pill to swallow. And I think because we're in an instant gratification kind of society, people are expecting that when they do something, they want to see instant results. But things like that, you're not going to see instant results. So it's like the thing I like to bring up to kind of bring that point home is like bring it back to like physical fitness, for example. Cause like when you go to work out, you don't go to the gym one time and then come out and you're jacked as hell, right? It takes time and you eventually see the progress that you've made because it's a physical change, right? But something like alcoholism and developing as a person, you might not be able to physically see it, right? So it's not tangibly right in front of you. So you might even think that you're not making progress until you actually stop and reflect and like look at, okay, where was I? Where am I in now? And then look at that gap and kind of be like, oh, hey, like I've actually made quite a bit of progress.
And for business owners who drink, there's business owners out there who drink. What's your belief on like business and drinking? Like do you see those like just say you never drank in your entire life. Like just put yourself at a clean state and you never drank in your entire life and you wanted to start a business, and knowing what you know from all that you've went through, like what do you see like being able to start a business and just maybe drinking once a week? Do you see that working out, or do you see that negatively affecting somebody?
Yeah. And so there, like I said before, there are some people who don't actually have like a big problem. So they're able to go out and just like have that drink on the weekend or something like that. And it won't affect their life. Right. Like, looking back, I don't think like just the way I was when I was drinking, if I would have had that one drink, it would have spiraled into some bad shit, right? So some of the business leaders that I follow that talk a little bit about like they don't necessarily like have a problem. Like one example would be Bedros Keuilian. I'm not sure if you know who he is, but he's pretty high level business guy. And so he doesn't drink really that often, maybe like once a year now, he said. But he said he used to go out and like drink with clients or drink with like business partners or go out to network and stuff. But then he doesn't do that now. And when people like ask him, like, hey, let's go out for drinks, he just doesn't do it, right? Because that's just not the type of person he is. And then people have a lot of respect for him because now he's saying, like, I'm not a person that drinks, and then you don't do it. And then he's just more competent and he's able to have higher level conversations with these people, and then they can trust them because it's like, okay, well, he's got nothing that's clouding his mind.
Okay, so why do you think some people can drink and some people can't? Like, why do you think some people can have that one or two, be perfectly fine, and then there's people who can't have one or two and not be fine?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like some people can eat peanut butter, some people will die when they eat it, right? It's like anything with like health and mental and stuff like that. It's not a one size fits all. Like we're all truly individuals. So I think just some people are just wired that when they drink alcohol, it affects them a certain way that makes them kind of go out of control, and other people don't have that problem, right? Because I know tons of people who can go out and have one beer, two beers, whatever, and then be fine and not even sweat it. I'm like, even just thinking about that right now, thinking about going out and having, say, two drinks and calling it a night, I'm sweating just
Same.
because I know like all I'd be thinking was, oh, no, I need another drink. I want to get drunk. Two beers wouldn't get me even a buzz. Right.
Yeah.
So
My belief
I
would be
just think
like,
that we're wired different.
my belief, if I were to go get a drink right now, and my mindset would be like, you just completely ruined all your progress to go get one drink.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's what it would
I would
be
be
like.
I would be so angry at myself, so angry.
Yeah, and that's kind of like if I went out and had like I might be able to go out and have one beer, but how long would I be able to hold that up? Because eventually it would catch up with me, and that voice in my head and my willpower would be down one day, and then I would just go out and get drunk, and then I would be able to justify it. I can go out and get and drink now. And then one thing that I do now, and this is not, again, everyone's different. I have a reminder right here in my office. It's an unopened can of beer from my last case I ever drank. And I have this as a reminder of the person that I don't want to be and I never want to be again. Some people
Damn.
might take this as a trigger, but for me, it's a powerful reminder of what I'm doing now and who I used to be that I don't ever want to become again. Right. So,
Dang, that's powerful. No, that's very, very powerful. I like that. Budweiser. You used to drink Budweiser?
I used to drink anything,
Oh,
anything
anything.
with alcohol in it. I'd fucking just let her rip, bud.
What was the nastiest beer? Because so for me, I don't know if y'all had it in up where y'all are, but it was called Bud Ice, and it was like
Oh, yeah.
cheap but strong and but nasty.
Okay, so the Olympics came to Vancouver in 2010, and this is when I was still drinking. This was 3 years before I got sober. And so the liquor stores had like different beers and stuff like this from all around the world come in, right? And so there was this one beer, it was a 40% beer. It was called Sink the Bismarck. So I ended up getting that, and that was the worst tasting shit you'll ever get, but holy damn, does it get you drunk.
Strong. So
Yeah.
so what do you do for fun now? Like, I'm curious. Like, what do you do for fun? We'll start there.
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's crazy because like when you ask somebody what you do for fun, it's like it's super subjective. So it's like something that's fun for this person over here won't be fun for a person over here. And I've had a lot of people tell me when they ask me that, like, oh, that doesn't sound like fun, but it's like it's fun for me, right? So
Yeah.
I'm super into physical fitness. So
Okay.
I work out and train every day, stuff like that. I'm very much into human psychology, human behavior. I'm into business, marketing, sales, operations, all that kind of stuff, right? So for me, when I wake up in the morning, I'm excited to get here into my office and study and um, all that kind of stuff and make myself a better person. So then that way I can impact more people, and then the ripple effect that I can cause for that impact that I'm looking for is going to be a lot bigger than if I was just out there and going and just doing whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
playing video games and not to say there's anything wrong with that at all. It's just for me, I get lit up when I get to do all those things to like drive the impact that I want to have.
So improve yourself. You like if being fun for you is
100%.
improving yourself. You're having
That's
the
fun
most
for
fun.
me.
Yeah, you're having the most
Have
fun.
good conversations like this
Yep.
fucking just lights me right up.
Yeah. No, I love that because that's honestly kind of the same thing I do. I don't really go out because honestly, like I said, I work at a bar. Whenever I was drinking, me going out, the club, all that was fun. But then the moment you stop drinking, if it like put people like I want people to do this. If you stop drinking, go to the club and actually try to have a good time. I really want you to try to do that. Go to the club, hang out with the people that you used to drink with, and try to have a good time while you're not drinking. It's just not the same anymore. Like you're gonna be like,
No.
why am I even here? Like this
Yeah.
sucks. Like
100%.
so, I was curious. Yeah, what you like to do for fun now? Since like some of the things you used to do, you most likely are not even interested in doing in the first place.
And I think that's part of getting sober too, because like if you're anything like me and you had a big problem with alcohol, that's all you did all the time. Like I would be living the week to be able to go out and drink on the weekends, and I would even drink during the week, right? So when you get sober, you're gonna have all that extra free time that you used to spend going out, getting drunk, doing drugs, whatever the case may be, to be able to now pick up hobbies and try different shit to see what lights you up, what you find fun. And hey, maybe fun for you might be going out to the bars and hanging out with other drunk people when you're not drunk yourself. Like, who am I to judge, right? Like, because like I said, we're all different, right? But
Yep.
that's part of the journey of getting sober is finding who you are and like the things that you enjoy personally.
Yep. No. So, no, very, very, very true. What would you tell to the people? Because we talked about this earlier, and I still want to kind of give some practical advice for the people who have to probably cut off their best friends. Because sometimes your best friend might be the person that's causing you to drink in the first place. He's like, "Hey, maybe let's go out for a beer. Let's go do this."
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the person you did everything with, and that's not easy to cut off your best friend. Let's just face it.
No, it's not. And kind of what happened with me, it was I was in a really good situation because at the time my best friend got sober with me, but all because I had so many people that I would call friends, but what it turned out was it was they were just ended up being drinking buddies because once I got sober, um, I tried to stay in contact with them, but they were always drinking and stuff, so I didn't really want any part of that. So the calls started getting bigger gaps, bigger gaps, bigger gaps. And most of my old friends kind of weeded themselves out, right? So if you
Mm,
don't have the luxury of being able to get sober with one of your best friends, what I would say is just kind of sitting down and reflecting like this doesn't mean this person's a bad person, but is this person living the way that you want to live yourself? Because then it comes back to you're going to be the average of the 5 people you hang around with most. Do you want this person to be part of your 5, right? And if you go through and like even just do some writing about it and like really think about it, because it is a big decision, right? And it's going to be hard to cut somebody out of your life that has played a big role into your life until that point, right? But if you can have friends that are still drinking whatever, but they can actually support you and like understand that, hey, this is how I'm going to live, and they can support that, not judge you, not try to pressure you into drinking. Because I know a lot of my like so-called friends would call me a pussy or like try to
yep.
put me down for wanting to
Yep.
make that decision, right? And I hear that all the time with people trying to get sober as well.
Yeah, they're like, "Don't be a pussy." I can already hear some of my friends saying that. "Don't be a
Yeah,
pussy. Come on, come
100%.
drink, man." Like, come on, like, just
Oh,
drink.
you're
Like,
lame.
yeah, you're lame. Like, oh, you're boring. No, and that's what people. That's I hate to say it, but that's the reality of what people got to go through.
Yeah.
People gotta get past that. You got to get past being told you're lame, you're boring, you suck to get to be sober. Like that's the hard reality,
100%.
and it doesn't sound that bad, but like in the time, it can be very bad, especially when this is coming from some of your closest friends.
Yeah, no, it's hard. And I remember even when I first got sober, in the beginning, like even my mom, because she's a bit of an alcoholic too, and I would always drink with her. So it's like in her mind, she was losing a drinking buddy. So in the very beginning, like she almost didn't like believe that I was quitting drinking or that. And I would hide a lot of things from her so she wouldn't see how bad it really was. So until she kind of understood and like I had to explain it to her, she wasn't really on board in the beginning, right? And if people in your family aren't on board, it's okay because it's like if you've been drinking all that time and like maybe you're hiding some things from like different family members, maybe they need a little bit of time to kind of see you as the sober person because like even at that point like I never did what I said I was going to do. So when I said I was going to get sober, it's like why would my mom believe anything I had to say, right?
Yep.
For example. So it's like you're just going to need some time with some of key people in your life. So whether it's a best friend or a mom or a dad, a sibling, anything like that, you're just going to need to give them some time. So like in the beginning, I might not make any hasty decisions, but I would definitely take some time out to really reflect and kind of decide who you want to have in your circle.
No, I agree. Question. I do got a kind of like it's along the same topics, but it's a side
Mm-hmm.
question. Are you familiar with Alexander the Great?
100%. Yeah.
Yep. Greatest. He conquered the Persian Empire. He had a small army. Um, he conquered so much. I'm talking about so much. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I watched all the episodes last night,
Yeah.
and he literally did the impossible. Impossible. He considered himself a god, and like he was a godlike figure, and he completely destroyed his whole life from alcohol. I found that out last night,
Mhm.
and I was
Oh,
shocked because
interesting. I
like
didn't know that.
no, look it up. He went downhill after he started drinking alcohol. He's actually won all the battles. Then he got really bad in the alcohol, and I'm not sure if that was the reason why he died an early death, but
Mhm.
he ended up passing away at like age 31. So
Oh,
he
wow.
accomplished yeah. It wasn't until like after, I'm not sure like the whole story because it's like way back before the
Yeah.
days, but like from what I read, like he like lost not lost it all, but like he ruined a lot of his life because of alcohol.
Mhm. I can see that happening because I like even just like thinking through like different people that I've seen like rise to the top of their life and stuff like that, and then it's like so easy for you to pick up alcohol and stuff like that, and for it to spiral out of control, right? So that definitely doesn't surprise me when you say somebody of his caliber ended up falling because of alcohol and stuff like that because it's super toxic.
Yeah, and the reason why I'm saying this is because like I had a really good point to this, but like Alexander the Great, he accomplished so many things, and even someone who accomplished so much was destroyed by the negative effects of alcohol. And if that right there isn't enough for you to make you want, like, if that right, that little, like, if go watch, for everyone watching this podcast, go watch Alexander the Great. It's a Netflix series where there's even a couple movies out there. Then do some research. You'll see that he drank alcohol, and like this great godlike figure came crumbling down from this substance. So it's like, if that doesn't make you want to change your life, I don't know what will.
100%. And then it just goes to show it's like it doesn't matter how good you think you are. It's like at the end of the day you're still human. So it's like what
Mm,
I like to think about is like especially if like you don't think that you're at a very high point in your life, like most people just getting sober usually are, because I know I was at like a super low of the low, right? But just remember that no matter who you're looking at, that's just a person. So if you got goals, anything like that that you're looking to get towards, or if there's a person that you idolize, just know that that's achievable for you too. But now you got to
yep.
go and figure out what that person did to achieve it, and you can achieve it too because you're also human.
Yeah, yeah, and you have a way better chance of achieving it sober. 100%.
Oh
You will be
yeah,
more focused. You'll have more energy. There's so many benefits. I mean, the list can go on.
yeah, no, absolutely. Because I just like look at myself because like even when I was younger, I was always a hard charger. I was a hard worker, and one of the things that I used to say, whether it was I was just deluding myself or just saying it because I thought it was cool, was I can go out and drink and then still go to work the next day. And it's like, okay, maybe I could do that, but if I was to take my sober self that had a good rest and my drunk self that had a couple hours of sleep and went to work, it's like the drunk guy could go to work, but he couldn't perform at the same caliber as my sober self. So I think that's another thing that people kind of say that deludes themselves, because I've even seen that on my commercial crab fishing boat. Usually what we do in the beginning of a season, we'd go and do our gear work. So on our crab traps, we'd make sure that they were all fine tuned and stuff. And so we'd
Yep.
be in town. So some of the guys that we ended up getting on the boat did have drinking problems. So they'd want to go out and drink after a day of work. And we'd be working like 12-hour days. And so I was the deck boss. So I was in charge of this person. And I didn't want to tell him, like, no, you can't go out and drink. He's a grown fucking man. Right. But I knew that he wasn't going to be able to perform the next day. And then he would like promise, like, oh, I'll work just as hard. I'll get just as much done. And sure enough, the next day I had to do the extra work because I had to pick up his slack because he wasn't 100% there to perform. Right.
Yep.
So,
No, I agree. I want to end with this. I want to end with this. I don't know if you ever heard of this concept, but who you are now let's just say you drink every day, you're hanging around the 5 friends that encourage you to drink every day, you're probably doing dumb decisions, you're doing all this stuff, you want to stop alcohol. Who you are now is, it was this term that I've heard from I don't know if you know who Sam Ovens is.
I've heard of them.
Yeah. He basically says who you are now is not capable of accomplishing your goals. So say your goal is to become sober, right? I want to become sober, I want to live a sober lifestyle. I've been trying, I just can't make it. It's like there's no help for me really. Who do you think people need to become to accomplish this goal? So basically like your basically building a new character. Like what would you say if we had to design this new character, what character traits and people like environments and stuff like that do people need to actually break away from this negative effects of alcohol and this hold that it has on
Yeah.
people's life?
Yeah, so I think you just hit it there. It's like you're not going to be able to reach that goal with the person you are now. You always have to develop to be able to hit the goals that you want to hit. And I think one of the things that I learned from one of my mentors that I think a lot of people could use if they're first getting sober is having core values. So the core values that he taught me were I call them the RISE core values. So it's an acronym, RISE. So RISE is responsibility, I is integrity, S is service, and E is excellence. And so you can choose any core values you want, but the way I use it is like a guide for how I want to live my life. And I think if you're able to focus on something else, like core values, then you can make better decisions going forward. So if I went to make a decision and it didn't align with those core values and the person who I wanted to become, then I wouldn't do it and the choice would be easy, right? So you have to literally develop the person you want to be and you have to act like that person now to be able to achieve those big goals and like get to 10 years of sobriety or even. And another thing that I just want to end with here is sometimes the time horizon that you're thinking on is a little too large, especially when you're getting sober. So you're not going to want to think, okay, I'm going to be sober for the rest of my life. That might be too big. You might need to break that time horizon down as small as the next second. I'm going to be sober for the next second. If that's how small you need to break it down to be able to get past and stay sober, right? Because I know a lot of people who think about it like I'm going to be sober the rest of my life, and that just overwhelms them and they go back out drinking, right? But if you
Yep.
break that time horizon down on how you're thinking about it, I think that's really helpful too.
Interesting. No, great. I appreciate you, Andrew. Appreciate having you on the show. No, it's been a great conversation. Loved every second of it so far, and I feel like there's a lot of value for people in here, especially if you, like you said, you drink alcohol and you want to stop. Get with Andrew. Where can people find you at?
Yeah, so you can find me at the Sober Spartan will be my podcast. So that's on Spotify, YouTube, that kind of stuff. And then my Instagram handle is Andrew Nichols Official. And then if you just search Andrew Nichols on Facebook, you'll find me. I'm verified, so good to go over there as well.
No, love it, man. And Spartans, I love. Is it Spartans? Like you get the idea from the Spartans, like the 300 Spartans who won the.
Fucking rights, I did, brother. My game handle growing up was King Leonidas. So
Oh, I love the Spartans, and I love 300, especially like they have the best defense ever, the best army, and
100%.
not ever, but like for their size of their army, they had the best defense and mindset too. So no, I love that.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, it's good being on, man, and hope we'll have another conversation sometime soon.
Yes, sir. Don't exit just yet.